let's address the first questions from Bobby. Bobby of the Sarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University of Jakarta. This question was forwarded to Dr. Jiang. The question is, how important is it for a country to have a standardized national exam to improve the quality of its student? Is it still relevant if the government administers a national exam that applies to all students? For instance, as we know, some countries such as Canada and Japan do not hold or have national exam for their students. Okay, Dr. Zhang, the question was addressed to you. Okay, Dr. Kyung-Suk Cha.
No, my problem is I cannot answer, but you know, somebody should control the microphone. Okay. Okay, I already make a note. Okay, thanks for the question. And then I think that every country has got the different names. The name is you know, I'm not sure whether what you mean when you refer to the standardized national exam. It means whole country at, you know, the assessment administered at the whole country level. Okay, we have the standardized national exam. We call the National Assessment of Educational Achievement. It's called NAEA. And I don't think it really depends on what kind of goals this assessment try to serve. That's the key point, I think. Oh, okay, that's the key point. And then our goal is to evaluate how much the students achieve the standards stated in the curriculum. That's the key function of this assessment. But it's not necessary to take, you know, every single student to take this examination. So we took 3.3% with, you know, the sampling. We call sample-based assessment. Okay, so we had a 3% sample size. Okay, and then they took this examination, and our institute, you know, developed this kind of assessment, and then we analyze the result and feedback when we revise the curriculum. Okay, and when the government setting up the policies, educational policies, for example, how many students are underachiever of the curriculum, you know, the standard, you know, the criteria, and then we prepare some kind of, you know, the support for the underachievers. Okay, that's kind of things. So I don't think personal view is not necessarily all the students should take this examination. I think the sample based, and then I know that many countries take the sample based national assessment. Otherwise, it can be give the pressures to every schools, because every head teacher wants to be the top. You know, they had more, you know, the fund from the government or local offices education, and they push the students, you know, to do the better. So it's a kind of the negative Bolshevik effect. So it really depends on what kind of goals this assessment try to achieve. And I think it depends. Okay, so I'm share what is happening in Korea. And one time there is only 1 year. It's quite, you know, the political decision. There is 1 year, whole schools and every single students had to take this examination. And then we have the very, very, you know, the negative feedback, because, you know, the teachers do not do anything except just, you know, just to push the students prepare this examination, because there are pressure from the head teacher from the local office education, pressure from the ministry. So everybody was not happy, you know, except the government set just back to the 3% of the sample-based assessment. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Chang. I would invite Dr. Kwong or also Dr. Bahrul if has a take on this question. Dr. Kwong first, maybe.
Yes. In Vietnam at the moment, we have the national exam for all students who, who finished the grade 12. And, there's so many debates about that. And at the moment, we also have different strategy to solve that problems. But at the moment, we don't have the solution yet. But the thing is, what I agree that if we apply the national examinations like that, it's put so much pressure on students and parents. At the moment in Vietnam, we just use the national examinations for the to see how students achieve the standards required in the national curriculums, and at the moment there are other examination it is organized by the university for the select student to go to each university is different. In the past, we just use the results from the national examinations, but at the moment, students can have different choices for that. It's not just like using the results from that assessment, that examination. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bahrul.
Yeah, Dr. Odit, the first one, there are some argument, regardless of the debate, I think in almost all countries about the national exam. The first one is if the government set the national standard or competency standard and national curriculum, it is logical also to check whether the student meet the standard. That's the frame. One argument is if you set the government the standard nationally, then it is very logical that you also have to check. That's one argument. But then another argument is where is the position of teachers? Classroom-based assessment who knows the student progress in the daily basis. So there are a lot of arguments, but some of the solution can be, there are some important point. If you set the national exam, you have to make sure that it is standard-based and send a good message to the school with a good examination system. Examination system external to the school can be the driver to the school. If it is the driver, you have to make sure that it is a good system to push the teacher in a quality learning. That's, I think, very important. The second option is, if you want to have national exam, it is also can be not mandatory for all, but it is optional. And then look at later on whether people like the national standard of exam or the local standard. That's just become the choice, because people now try to tick not only national but international standard. So why they take international standard? Some schools, some students, just because they want to have a benchmark. They want the mobility easier to any school, to any countries. So I think that's the argument. Become the voluntary system is one of the options, that students who want to have the national certificate should take the national exam. If don't, then they can have the school certificate. Probably that's the option, Pak Dr. Rodipya. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Bahrul. Okay, dear participants, we have 3 different perspectives on these questions. It's not totally different. To put it in Dr. Changwood, it's depend. It's depend on the goals, on the objective of the assessment. Yes, the 3 presenters mentioned about a debate around this national assessment for everyone. Let's put it that way. All right, thank you. Let's address the second questions. The second question is addressed to all the speakers from Arinugroho Yukiasmoro. It was mentioned earlier that one of the problem is that teachers are not trained enough in developing proper tests or exam. Just wondering, is there really a lack of material related to this area, test development or psychometrics in the curriculum during teachers' educations? Okay, let's start first with Dr. Xiang.
Okay, the key point of this question is really lack of material related. I think not. It means whatever materials the government provide the teachers, there is some more still areas for need every time we found out, because I already told you the materials, support materials or resources cannot meet all the needs from different contexts, okay? Because teachers has got the different levels of the ability and the prior experiences, expertise, whatever, okay? But we cannot, satisfy all the needs. But the key point is support. So support their professional development at the stage where they stay in at the moment, because teachers are staying in the different level, and then we're trying to support their, the learning to teach is going to grow, whatever, or developed better. Okay? So it depends on the context. Okay, but there is nowhere all the teachers are satisfied. Okay, we have enough. There is no way. Okay. That's my answer, and that's my experience. Even though the Korean government provide a lot, there are still teachers. Okay, more resources. The never end the stories. More. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Yang. Dr. Kwong?
Yes, I think this is an interesting question, because we talk about the test and the exams. So I think in my presentation I mentioned about 3 different components of the educational assessment system, when we focus on the classroom assessment, the examination, and the large-scale assessment. And from the teacher's perspective, I think is focus more on the classroom assessment. And the instruments we use is not just the test or the test. So in Vietnam, we with the teachers within the classroom, we train them how to design the items, how to design a good item to use for the formative assessment and summative assessment. From my perspective, I think we, with teachers, we also need to train them to how to design other instruments like the observation sheet or some other methods, assessment methods, rather than focus on train them to how to develop the standardized test or some kind of like psychometrics property, something like that, because it's too complicated for them, and it's, from my opinion, it's too complicated for them, and it's not necessary for them to understand all of those things. So we don't, we have a lot of material, but it's I think it's too complicated to understand for the teachers. So in Vietnam, we focus more on training them about designing the items, design the other instruments using within the classroom context, not focus too much on designing the tests or the standardized tests, because I think that's not the job of teachers within the classroom. So
Okay.
yeah, I
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kwong. Dr. Bahirul Hayat, maybe you have a take on these
Yeah.
issues?
Yes. To add, yes, at the teacher education institution, sometimes there is no balance weight or load of strategy how to teach and strategy how to assess. The curriculum of the teacher education mostly concentrate on how to teach. That's I think one of the criticism almost all countries experience this situation. So we have to balance the material and the experience of candidate teacher to have ability to develop how to assess in comparison, in parallel also how to teach. I think that's one point. The second one, how to teach and how to assess, it should be linked to the subject matters, because assessing and teaching language is quite different with teaching and assessing mathematics. So there is a special approach by subjects. I agree with Dr. Kwong that psychometric aspect is not very important for the classroom teachers. The most important one is they have to know how to teach effectively, make sure that the student can learn effectively, but then the students also can be assessed effectively by the teachers. I think that's the key. Thank you, Dr. Rodip.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to summarize this, but I think the three speakers come into one agreeable point. And I think we can put it, if teachers has to learn everything under the sun about assessment, then they're going to become measurement specialists, not teachers at all. We can put it that way. All right. Next question. This is also to all speakers from Lala Bumela. There are a lot of empirical findings from the field of neuroscience of learning that gave a key insight on learning. There is no recipe for learning. In this case, how would you design the formative assessment that is compatible with the pedagogy that one have developed in another country? Okay, let's start. Now I will start with your permission, with Dr. Bahrul Hayat. Do you have a take?
Dr. Rodip, thank you. The first one, the philosophy of assessment should be linked with the philosophy of instruction. This is very important. That's why I said again, link your assessment strategy with also the subject matters. So there is a philosophy of assessment should be linked with the philosophy of teaching, and also should be linked with the characteristic of the subject. That's I think very critical. I agree that there are some findings from neuroscience, for example, about the key insight on learning. Formative assessment can be used as a tool for this one. That's just the key. Use formative assessment with whatever you have in your mind in terms of the theory of learning, then attach to the formative function. I think that's just the key. So don't teach something and then assess another things.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is teaching is just a tool for learning. It's not the end of the process. The end of the effort is the student to learn. So make sure that the approach of our teaching and later on with our assessment should be linked with the new development of our understanding of the students, including from the neuroscience. So use again formative assessment as a tool for you to provide the key insight to the students.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bahru. Now, Dr. Kwong.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree that there is no recipe for learning. I agree, totally agree that. And even not just between the countries, even within a class, right? Within a classroom, different students have different view, different way to learning. So that's normal. But I would like to go back to the triangle model Dr. Chang presented before, because we think about the curriculum, teaching, and assessment surround go along together, and it's surrounded by the learning environment. So I think I agree with Dr. Hayat here, because we can like teaching something and we use other thing to assess. So if we want to do that, we have to adapt this to each other. It's not like we use different things to do in one system. That's my opinion. And I think when we design the formative assessment, it's really important if we focus on the standard, the learning outcomes, the learning objective when we teaching, and how we can confirm that student achieve that or not. So that's important. So that's my point of view in this question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kwong. Yes, Dr. Chiang.
I think it's a very interesting question, because there is no what you say. Okay, there is no recipe for learning. That means any recipe can be effective. If you're looking at if somebody says there is no recipe for learning, that means you can use any recipe. There is a chance it can be possible and effective. Okay, so I can say your question is to your question. I can say yes, you can design the assessment, formative assessment, any type of assessment that's compatible with that approach. But I must say it should be aligned. The Quang Dong, the Vietnam specialist mentions is it should be aligned with that pedagogy. Okay, that's the key point. Yes, you can develop any type of assessment under that philosophy, but it should be aligned with that philosophy. That's the key point, and also with the adaptable research and learning. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. According to the time now, I think we have time for one more questions. Let's see. Or maybe, okay. This is from Anis Al-Farah Elementary School. So means she's a teacher. About professional learning communities. This is to Dr. Jiang. It starts from where? So measure. What do we do when the students do not learn? Can you explain more about the steps? Okay, Dr. Jiang.
I will explain based on my experience. Okay. Not from the theory, okay, because I found out that sometimes the theory or the something in the internet does not work at all. So my answer coming from my experience. Okay, what is the important point or that the teachers can the setting up the PLC and the help each other. That's the very good point. Start point. What is very important, but where does what comes from? That's the the key point of your question. Okay, it can be interest. Okay, for example, some teachers in one school are they have a discussion and have interest in the improving or the message. The best teachers are get together and have a discussion. Okay, according to the new curriculum, these issues are very much the new, and then we want to do work together to improve our students' math learning, things like that. So coming from the interest either, or coming from the issues agenda of that context. For example, in Korea, we focus, emphasize the project-based learning, and nobody knows how we can conduct the product-based learning because we don't have any experience. But everybody talking about the product, the project-based learning is important for the 21st century skill. So for one area, the teachers get together. We don't know, so they start with that agenda, very hot agenda of the curriculum. Okay, so I told you that coming from the interest or coming from the agenda or coming from the result of the assessment, national assessment. For example, it's not really, the how do you say, the not teacher initiative, but a head teacher initiative, because the head teacher was very, the upset about the outcomes of the national assessment. So he or she wants to their school improve or have the better result next assessment. So they push the school teachers and building up the PLC and then the work together improve that areas. Okay, so I can say coming from the interest, which is very rare, because the teachers have got so many work and no time to work extra for the PLC. So interest is very effective, but very rare because they are busy. And coming from the, the changes in the policy. Okay, there are some issues they want to improve. Okay, and another, the what is coming from the, the result of the assessment, the national-based assessment. These are three, the major what areas. Okay. But there are other areas which is, the very rare. So, okay, that's enough. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jiang. All right. I think we are just 5 minutes to the end of this webinar. So I apologize to the participants that has posed a question. Because we have a very limited time, but in this last 3-4 minutes, I would give a time to each of our presenters to say if they have a final remark on these sessions. Not the last word, no, not the last word. Tomorrow we still have word, and further next year, hopefully we still have word, but final remarks related to the topic of our today webinars. So please, maybe Dr. Kwang first. We'll take a round.
Okay. Yeah. I think with this sharing session, with me, I learned a lot from other countries, and I think the most important thing is we focus about learning, how students learn effectively. I think all of other thing is focused on that. So with me and during my work in my institute, I just try to help students through the training, through the interview with teachers, working with school, to help them how to promote the students' learning and how to use assessment methods effectively. So we will go step by step, because from my experience, teachers, it's really hard or difficult to for teachers to design the assessment within the classroom, especially in Vietnam when we changed from the old curriculum to the new curriculums. And I think we just go step by step. And with all those, if you are teachers, just confident and learn day by day and apply just day by day all of your knowledge and skills to help students to learn. And that I think that's the most important thing we should focus on. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jiang.
Okay, today I was very surprised because of your passion and interest of the participant, because this is not going to happen in Korea, because they off the video and doing something else, never pay attention to the what specialist talk. But I realized that through the question and your participation, I realized that your, the energy and the passion and your the willingness to make a contribution to the improve the education. Thanks for that. And then I think I remember I reviewed the books published by the government, what is the educational policy, and one chapter which drew my attention is your country is the one where the quality of the teacher is the first and the last to improve education. And at that time, I was very impressed. And then I see what is happening in your country. So thanks for that. And then my final the comments is related to your the professor. I cannot read your name, but anyway, I think we don't need to separate diagnostic test from the formative and summative, because summative and formative, they can play some kind of functions to diagnose students' learning weaknesses. So we can use diagnostic assessment functions anytime in the whole process of learning. And I think that's the way we can prevent test can be a very dangerous tools if you do not use a proper way. Okay, so I still remember, I always remember whenever I give a talk about the test, I always remember the sentence by the Israeli scholar. He says something, the test can be gone. Okay, he is quite, very striking quotation, but I always remember test can be the very powerful, but at the same time, very dangerous if we use in a proper way. Okay, that's my last word. Thank you very much for your attention and participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chiang. Now, Dr. Bahrul Hayat.
Yeah, I just want to thank all the participants and Dr. Orip and the committee members. A very simple statement. I'll conclude that assessment has two sides of one coin. So the first one, assessment, is to know our student better. But at the same time, assessment is to know ourselves as a teacher better. I think that's enough. Thank you, Dr. Orip. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bahrul Hayat, Dr. Xiang, Dr. Kwong. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us to share your thought, your wisdom, and the practice in each of your country. I think we have a very rich webinar today. We can learn from each other, learn from the practice, the thinking, the policy from at least 3 different countries. Hopefully next time we can extend this to a different country. So we can put together all of our knowledge and thinking. And at the end, we all agree, as mentioned by the presenters, what we are trying to do is to help students to learn better. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to our presenters. And
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I will return the session, the floor, to the organizers. So maybe the MC, Putri. Thank you very much again. And hopefully we meet again and work together very closely in a short time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chang, Dr. Kwang. See you.
Thank you very much.
So we can leave now or stay?
Yeah.
Okay, can we leave? Yes, sir?
Okay, the MC, the MC, I think, will announce something. Putri?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Please wait a second, I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. You can leave, Dr. Chang.
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait.
Please allow me
Okay.
to close the webinar just for a second.
Okay.
So as expected, it was an interesting and insightful session by all the speakers, and it was an honor to gain insight on summative and diagnostic educational assessment from all the speakers today. And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up today's event. On the behalf of this webinar and the ICAL committee, we would like to thank you all once again for attending today's event. It's been a pleasure to host this event, and we wish you all a pleasant day. We would also like to announce that please do fill out the attendance form through the link below. Should you need a certificate of participation. So once again, please fill in the link that is in the chat for the participants, not for the session givers. So for the participants, please fill in the link as seen in the chat. Once again, thank you all for your participation, and thank you again for the amazing speakers today. My name is Putri, and thank you.